We want to just review slightly with you what has transpired over the last several hours as Director Comey answered a slew of different questions about investigations ongoing that the FBI is looking into. One of the comments he made at the very beginning of the hearing had to do with his investigation, the FBI's investigation into Hillary Clinton's use of private email and a private server. And he had a very interesting self-reflection, a self-assessment as to his own actions in relation to that investigation. Here's what he had to say.
Look, this was terrible. It makes me mildly nauseous to think that we might have had some impact on the election. But honestly, it wouldn't change the decision. Everybody who disagrees with me has to come back to October 28th with me and stare at this and tell me what you would do. Would you speak or would you conceal? And I could be wrong, but we honestly made a decision between those two choices that even in hindsight, and this has been one of the world's most painful experiences, I would make the same decision.
Director Comey there. Rove joining us, former senior advisor and deputy chief of staff of President George W. Bush and a Fox News contributor as well. We're going to talk about a few different things, Carl, including health care, because there's a lot of interesting actions that have taken place as we've been watching this hearing with Director Comey. What do you think we learned from Director Comey today?
Well, that he's a stubborn guy who has strong opinions and acts on those opinions. I'm one of those rare individuals. I find fault with both his approach in July and his approach in October. In October, I do think that it would have been better for him to have remained silent for the remaining days of the campaign, to have gone ahead and conducted the investigation, but not to have sent the letter, not to have made it public, for exactly the reason that we now see. The Democrats have seized upon this as a means of explaining away their election defeat, claiming that he was responsible for influencing the outcome of the election. In reality, the polls showed that there was little or no movement whatsoever in Hillary Clinton's standing between the 27th of October and the Real Clear Politics average and Election Day. But I think he intruded into it, made himself an issue. I wished he hadn't done it. What was even more amazing to me today was the number of people. You just saw the last senator on the Democratic side was a former U.S. attorney for Connecticut, former attorney general for Connecticut, Senator Blumenthal. In July, Director Comey took upon himself the right to make the decision as to whether or not there would be a prosecution of anyone connected with the Hillary Clinton email scandal. That is not his right. He's the investigator. It is up to the prosecutor, the U.S. attorney or the U.S. attorney general to make that. And nobody on the Democratic side would go after him to say, do you think you were acting within your authority in July to have made on your own determination a decision that does not belong in the hands of investigators? We don't allow the police to make the decision whether or not you're going to be charged. That's up to the local prosecutor or the U.S. attorney.
You know, and it brings us back, timing is everything. Right, Carl? You had Hillary Clinton, former presidential candidate, saying just yesterday, making national, international news, blaming the FBI again for her loss. Then you have Director Comey, previously scheduled to testify, and here we are talking again about the past. The American people, though, do have the FBI and a president that we hope are working efficiently on our behalf. How do you think those events of the past are hanging over either the administration or the FBI and impacting us?
Well, I think, look, the Democratic narrative is that Hillary Clinton did lose because she was a lousy candidate who stood for the status quo in a year in which people wanted change. She lost because Director Comey came out on the 28th of October and said he was investigating her, renewing the investigation of her. So we're going to keep hearing this. We're also going to hear, we heard a little bit of a, senator from Minnesota talked about this. Other Democrats did. What about the collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia? And we're going to keep hearing this. And these are going to be distractions, first of all. But more importantly, they're going to add to the general environment that is so corrosive to people's trust in our government and our political system and our political leaders. I wish both parties would stop it. And I don't think Jim Comey, with all due respect to the director of the FBI, helped build trust in our political system and in the FBI by his actions in July and October.
I'll be curious what our viewers think about that on social media and look forward to their feedback. Carl, just quickly here, we have some developments when it comes to health care and the GOP trying to move this through the House. Apparently, there's some sort of deal worked out where there'll be a little bit more backing for groups of individuals with pre-existing conditions. That looks like it's getting the GOP schism to come together. What do you think our viewers should know? We only have about a minute here.
Well, we don't know all of the details, but it looks like it's more money for the high-risk pools. This is the way for states to step in and create pools to in essence, socialize the risk of people with very expensive pre-existing conditions and cover their costs. Rather than having it paid for by people who are in the exchanges, which is a relatively modest group, we'd have it paid for by taxpayers. We'll see if this gets more than 2 votes. It has gotten 2 important votes. The former chairman of the Energy and Commerce Committee, Fred Upton of Michigan, who's well respected, particularly on the moderate side, and then Billy Long of Missouri, who was an early Trump supporter and will have an influence on the conservative side. The fact that the White House was able to help flip these 2 by agreeing to an amendment dreamed up by Long and Upton is a pretty interesting thing. We'll see if it generates enough votes.
And we'll see if there's a vote tomorrow on it. Carl, thank you very much. Something to watch. Appreciate it.
You bet.